Hey, welcome everyone. This is Mind Your Own Business. My name is Pablo, and thanks for listening. All right, so thank you so much, everybody. I have Alexandra here. She's a project lead in the HR department, um, working for a startup based in Pittsburgh. She can tell us more about that. So to start, hey Alexandra, how are you today?
Hi, Pablo. I'm great. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you and for a great conversation today.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So first question is, I ask everybody, who do you help?
Yeah, so my position is mainly internally facing. So I don't communicate with any external clients. Obviously, I'm on the HR team. I would say I directly help our department leaders who have any problems seeking resolution for more efficiency within the company. And then indirectly, that does help our people at RoadRunner because I should say, obviously benefit from solving those problems and making sure the company operates efficiently from the inside out.
Perfect. And what's your why? What made you go to HR, or what's your biggest motivation? Yeah.
Yeah, so with HR, and I think every HR practitioner says something along these lines. I'm a people person. I came into this position from recruiting. So I had that linked experience to HR. I enjoy working with people, I enjoy speaking to people. On the project management side of things, the actual function of my job, I would say that I was attracted to it because I like to look at something that's inefficient and to work with people and to facilitate with people a better solution that makes all of our lives easier. So anytime I think of it as like a piece of rope with a bunch of knots in it. I like to kind of go and one by one get the knots out. And then at the end, you have your full rope that's functional again. So yeah, that's the way I like to think about my job, kind of twofold.
That's a great way to look at it. And on that same note, you're facing like your internal your work is internal, and and you're a people person, so you know a lot about like teams and workplaces. And my follow up question today is how do you create an irresistible workplace? I've been doing some research that we can talk about later on, but what's your the first thing that comes to mind when you just want to create the best place to work at?
Yeah. So that's a great question. Something I also want to mention is I am a member of our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee at Roadrunner. So thinking with that hat, I think a lot about inclusion on teams and inclusion in management. So everyone, obviously there's inclusion from a diversity standpoint. You know, you want to include everyone and be cognizant of how other people's experience affect their behaviors at work, their perspectives, etc. I also think about being inclusive of different learning styles and working styles. So there are some people that really thrive in autonomy. You can tell, well, I'm one of those people. So you can tell me, a few points to the problem, tell me who's involved, who I need to, include as my subject matter expert, and then I'm going to take it and run with it and work with them to facilitate the project timeline, what we're going to do to solve it, and I'll be the accountability factor, and then I'll drive us to the finish line. There are other people, though, who maybe need a little bit more direction. Maybe they need more detail. They need some time to sit and think about how they would go about that problem. They need the analysis and reflection period. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm a better worker than that person because I can, just run with the autonomy. Instead, it just means that we're different and, we can both get the same result. We just have different ways of solving and going about our work. So I think that from a management perspective, honoring that within everyone, recognizing that it's not that one is better than the other, and also that there are even more working styles than just the two that I called out. That can really make everyone feel valid, and it's just a good way to go about work and to not feel that sense of having to fit in a box that your brain doesn't think like, if that makes sense.
When you hear diversity, maybe we were educated to, like, our brain immediately goes to just having people from different backgrounds, like where they came from or whatever, as opposed to even psychographic of what are your values, what do you believe, what you do every day outside of work, and that can add up a lot of value to the team, because it creates this broad spectrum of input that can actually help the team a lot, versus just everybody's going to be the same, just a number here.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say that that's something that I learned from my current manager who I report to. And I would say within our general HR team overall, we all have our niche and our different personalities, our different working styles. And I would say that that's honored equally, despite the fact that we all are different. And yeah, it's a really good way of doing things.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and definitely something teams can implement out there. um, and on that same note, like, what do you think, besides maybe diversity being one of them, but what will be the biggest challenge you see teams facing today when it comes to company culture? Is it, lack of inclusion, diversity, but also other things?
Yeah, I think that that's a really good question. So of course, the absence of everything I just talked about, that would definitely impact culture. I also think that, how can I say this? I think that the way we view work is definitely something that impacts culture. And I think that this goes from, you know, our own individual perspectives, but also like a collective perspective on a team. So if people are thinking like, I have this problem that I need to solve, or I have this project that I need to work on, or I need this answer from this person, we have to understand that everyone on your team also is working on their own plate of priorities, and everything is timed differently. Different tasks have different priority, etc. So I think that a good way to work with people is to understand that, and to, maybe realize that sometimes, me personally, if I need an answer, I might take a backseat approach of waiting for that, and understanding and honoring the fact that everyone is busy on my team. We're working together. So if we can just get that assumption down pat, then I think it eliminates that sense of like stepping on each other's toes, if that makes sense. So I think maybe the word I'm looking for here is just more empathy, and um, more buy-in for teamwork. I know that a lot of people assume that just because you work on a team that you have this harmonious teamwork, but in reality, it does take work, it does take self-awareness to contribute to that positive and team environment. And yeah, so I think if that's something that everyone can implement and kind of become aware, we can all focus on ourselves, and then it collectively becomes a better team that way.
I recently read somewhere that one of the biggest gaps in teams is just thinking that the other person's job is too easy and should be resolved, like, in my timeline or something like that.
Yeah.
And we typically don't know, like, all right, so sales is not easy, marketing is not, like, no, nothing's really
Mhm.
so easy the way I think about it. So if I think, yeah, we should definitely change this website, it should take 10 minutes, right? Just changing a color, but then
Yeah.
that comes with a consequence. And then adding to the point of, all right, so maybe I need to have more empathy here. I need to know where you're coming from, and why you're behaving this way in the team, or why you have this opinion or not in the team. So I agree
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and also you mentioned self-awareness. I'm curious to know, do you practice that? Not you, but as a team, or maybe yourself. Do you practice self-awareness in some sort of what kind of mindset is a good mindset to have in a team spirit?
Yeah, so I can speak for myself and say that, it's easy to get caught up in a project plan or in a timeline because that is my job is to keep everyone on track and to make sure we drive for that end result. And it so of course, in a perfect world, I would have all the answers on my desk the very next morning and everyone would do their part and then there's no problems or there's no um, forks in the road that lead to making the project at risk. But of course, that doesn't really happen. So I constantly remind myself, okay, we have XYZ change that we're dealing with behind the scenes, in addition to the solution or the question that I'm asking. I know that everyone also has a personal life, and that inevitably impacts our own job. And also, I think that, I will catch myself sometimes worrying about my own performance of okay, well, am I what everyone needs right now? Am I facilitating this the best way? Am I asking the best questions that are getting the best answers and provoking the best thought? And of course it's easy to come off of a discussion and think like, well, I should have asked this or I could have said that. But I have to kind of foster that self-awareness and also be real with myself about the fact that we're all contributing and doing the best we can. And of course, it's not always going to be perfect, but at the end of the day, it is work and it will all be there tomorrow. I mean that in the least dismissive way possible. I think that if we can just view things for what they are, still do a good job, still show up wanting to provide the best that we can, but realizing the fact that there's so many factors that go into all of this, it's going to be all right and we're going to figure it out together. So, um, yeah.
Well, that's a great mindset to have. I'm not sure. I think, well, many people, myself included, have fallen in the workaholism side of things, which is like, yeah, I'm super worried. I can't sleep at night, or I'm stressed out for sure. And that's I think talking about having a healthy workspace is somewhere that you can actually you wouldn't have those issues in such a place. So I'm glad you brought that up because I do believe that it's
Yeah. I used to think early in my career and probably in college, that if I wasn't stressed, it meant that I didn't care. And that's a toxic way of thinking. I didn't realize it at the time. But in hindsight, well, I'm thinking like, well, that's not really true. I can do my job and do it great and then still end my day and then work on personal things at night and it is okay. If I'm stressing about work, then I can't take care of myself in my personal time and then I can't be the best that I can be to complete what I want to do at work. So, in reality, I think that allowing yourself to detach after work hours and just relaxing. And also during work hours, reminding yourself that, it is not the end of the world if somebody takes a little bit longer to get back to you. Or it is not the end of the world if you make a mistake. Instead, it's just about, correcting that, changing course, and moving forward. It's literally that fixable sometimes, at least in my role. I know client facing positions, it might be a different solution, but yeah, that's kind of my take there.
based on research that we've done. So millennials today, or younger generations such as ourselves, such as us, we kind of lost touch with some community. We rely more on the digital side, and some
Mhm.
religious entities and some other things that our parents or grandparents had that we just don't have the same anymore. and so we rely on work, which is the thing that we cannot escape. And so for some people, work became like the thing, and so my impact in the world is going to be through work, and I'm going to make it through work. And so if you take that as the north star, it's hard because if a project fails, then you failed. Like your entire
Mhm.
thinking is kind of bruised. So
Right.
I agree with you, and I'm with you on a sense that we actually need that. We need to turn that off, especially after work, and do other things, family, friends, going outside, whatever you like, just to go back to it and perform better at whatever you do. And you're right.
Hmm.
There are certain jobs that need some other approaches, or but in general, uh, we really want to take care of our mental health.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, last two questions. I want to be super mindful of your time, Alexandra. But in your based on your experiences, what's like one, two, or three things? And we covered some of them, but is there something else they want to add that teams can do today, easy to do, they're not doing it as much, maybe in general,
Mhm.
that could improve their culture for the teams? Just
Yeah.
one, two takeaways.
Yeah, so I would definitely say we'll call it like taking inventory of your team and their learning style, and keeping that open communication. So, maybe if you're somebody who wants to analyze before you go forward and propose a solution, communicate that with your team. I'm still thinking about this. Give me a second, and I can contribute, tomorrow or the next day. That way it's not misperceived as, oh, they're not really contributing to this, or they don't understand what's going on. Instead, it's the opposite. You are thinking about it, you are working on a solution. But you're taking some time to think. And other people may like to verbally brainstorm and get to the point right away. So I think taking that inventory of working style and then also communicating is really important. And this is from like the management's perspective and from the individual contributor perspective. People can't know what you're thinking unless you tell them. So I'm a big advocate of open communication there. um, yeah, so that's number one. And then number two, I would say making sure as a team leader, you're making time to have some type of non-work related bonding. So I'm not saying you need to like hang out with your people from work every single day after work. But maybe having a meeting where it's just getting lunch and talking via Zoom, or if you are in person, physically going to the office, having lunch together, maybe doing some type of training activity or something where, again, you're learning about your team. It's not necessarily just everyone's in the office or everyone's via Zoom working on their stuff. But instead, you're taking that time to enrich and enhance the skills of people on your team. I think that that speaks a lot to how you value your team, and it helps you, again, continue to learn about others that you work with day in and day out. So these are things that have worked on our team that I've observed from our leadership. And yeah, I think that that would be great if others could implement it as well.
Yeah, those are great takeaways. So just do it. Alexandra, thank you so much. My last question is, where do we find you online, and if you have any final comments?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Alexandra Sorce. You can find me there.
All right, there you go. Thank you so much, Alexandra. It's been a pleasure to have you here. Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you, Pablo. It was great speaking today.